Sarpong and other guests as they join us. Now, you followed the ruling of the court yesterday.
Yes, I had the opportunity to listen to some commentary and also read some few write-ups with regards to the court ruling from Tamale.
What are your initial remarks?
It's an interesting but yet a dicey situation that we have. Kpandai, just as rightly described by your guest on Zoom, can be described as more or less a swing constituency, a swing seat, and nobody actually has grips over the constituency as it stands. But I think that when it comes to parliamentary elections, I mostly would consider the individuals that are involved than the political party here. And I say this because even in recent times, the 2024 elections, if you would recall, the NPP as a political party had about 20 of their MPs that did lose, tried to come back in 2024. And if you look at the statistics, I think it's only Matthew Nindam that was able to come back to Parliament. It tells you how strong he is on the ground. If you look at
That's the incumbent MP whose results have just been
announced. And if you look at the history of the Kpandai constituency, you would then want to ask yourself many questions. It means that the NDC as a political party and the person who is contesting again, I think Daniel or so, Wakpao would has a lot of work to do if he wants to claim the seat back. It's not easy for somebody to bounce back immediately he loses an elections. It means that there are certain things that probably the constituents thought that you could not present to them well than he did. And Matthew has been a very strong person, individual in Parliament. I think he was either a majority deputy whip or just chief whip himself. And so he has some level of influence. And so it is not just a done deal for the NDC. If they indeed want to take it back, it means that they have a lot of work to do. And, if you look at the results of the just ended, the one they just annulled, I think JDM had about 25,488, which rounded up to about 50% and then Alhaji Bawumia had 25,414, and Matthew had actually appreciated in votes than Dr. Bawumia. He had in excess of 27,000, and Daniel, on the other hand, did not also get up to the number of votes that JDM, his presidential candidate, had. He had less than 25,000. He had around 24,000. So you would understand that Nindam has a stronger personality on the ground in the constituency than Daniel. So it means that he has a lot of work to do if indeed he would want to bounce back. But now, the rule of law. We would have to insist that the Electoral Commission strengthens its laws governing elections in this country.
Strengthens?
Yes. They would need to be able to strengthen it, and they would need to be able to ensure it works. If you ask a very fundamental question, why the judge did not ask for a rerun of just the disputed constituencies,
41.
because Kpandai has about 152 constituencies. Now we are contesting 41 of these polling stations, and then a judge would rule that we should have an entire rerun of rerun of the entire constituency. It tells you that they're aside contesting the numbers of these 41 polling stations, the issues of irregularities that did occur, which of course was part of the petition that was submitted to the High Court, was indeed considered. You understand me? And I haven't been running elections from 1996, if I'm not mistaken, up until now. I believe that the Electoral Commission by now shouldn't be making or be allowing certain mistakes and certain irregularities, very minor ones in this country. I do not want to blame it on the administrative strength or the fact that probably they need to take their officers through probably a continuous orientation for them to understand that these laws exist and these laws must work. And when they are doing it, just as your guest has stated, they should do it hand in hand with the security forces. Because whether or not these security services are a part of our electoral process, they are there to ensure peace. I do not understand, or I cannot understand why there would be a coalition center, and in the process we have all agreed, and by law we are supposed to have agents there, and somebody says that his agent is not around, yet you would want to go ahead with the process. Unless otherwise the person does not have the capacity to provide or be represented by an agent in the coalition center, because it is law and it is part of the procedure. You understand me? So if you have an electoral officer or electoral commissioner who is in charge of this coalition center, and the person allows such a thing to happen, issues of signature, issues of misalignment and misinput of the numbers. This is supposed to be on Form 8A, and rather they've put it on Form 3C or something. I mean, these are very minor irregularities that should not be allowed. So what happens to these officers, as he has asked? We need to know what happens to these officers. We need to know the orientations that they go through before the elections begin. We need to understand what they actually go, because the processes are very much known and they are well laid out in the act that establishes the elections. And so these are things that myself and you should not have issues with. And I have experienced the Electoral Commission, and I keep saying, we have the laws, but they refuse to allow the laws to work. The procedures are there. They refuse to allow the procedures to work. Now, how would you feel if you are an independent presidential candidate and you would go to fulfill all righteousness with the Electoral Commission, and it is time for them to distribute agent cards or accreditations, and an officer would confidently tell you that you have the capacity to have agents across all the 40-something thousand polling stations.
They asked you that.
And then they refuse to even give you these cards, which is mandatory. And so if you do not have a voice, then it means you are lost out. And most of these smaller parties that you see around, that I will call them subsets of some of these bigger parties, because they were subset, they couldn't even voice it out. We had to actually go through a struggle to get these accreditations. And I have WhatsApp messages to that effect, when we were even looking for the officer who was in charge. And so if there was any issue of dispute in respect to the 2024 elections, and we had decided to go to court, is it not embarrassing that as a commission, you know that these persons have filled their forms? We went through all the over 100 and something districts to get people to endorse our candidate, haven't gone through all this struggle, and then you come to tell me that I will not be able to have agents, and for that matter, you are not giving me accreditation.
What response did you get for that?
What? No, we pushed for it.
Yeah, I mean,
it's also unfortunate that most of our regions, because because of the time span, because this was less than 24 hours.
Yeah, it was a topical story at the time.
It was less than 24 hours, and you go through this frustration. This is a basic requirement.
This is a basic requirement.
This is in the law,
and this is happening, or this actually did happen.
It did happen.
How do we, and political parties like yours, ensure that in working with the EC, there is the transparency and accountability that we ask for? Because this is the most basic requirement that you can ask for as a party or as an independent candidate going into an election. But this is a struggle that you had to
go
deal
through.
with.
Yes,
you were confronted with this,
yes.
much to the surprise of a lot of us. How do we as a country ensure that in working with the EC, political parties like yours are able to successfully work with the EC? You mentioned, Dr. Samuel Ifrie mentioned the security agencies. But what about political parties? How do we ensure that in working with the EC, there is the accountability, the fairness and transparency that we ask for?
That is supposed to be your hallmark.
How do we ensure this happens?
That is supposed to be your hallmark. And you see, the fact of the matter is this. It is because the system does not respect these smaller parties and independent presidential
When you say the
candidates.
system, are you referring to the EC or
yes,
or
the
the
EC.
country?
That is what I'm talking about. I mean, we are talking about the Electoral Commission.
Okay.
So let's leave it at that. It is the regard they give to us, the mindset, the perception that this is a smaller party. This is an independent presidential candidate. Ghana is not ready for an independent candidate. Ghana is not ready for a third force. Ghana is not ready for another party. It is just between the NDC and the NPP. That mindset. You understand me? You go into IPAC meetings with them, and you would even have to be able to catch the eye and convincingly make a statement before you are even giving some level of regard. And it's
really
surprising. Oh yeah, of course. I mean, I'm saying this on air. they can phone in.
You're not able to put forward your contributions at IPAC meetings.
The intimidation.
On whose part?
On the part of the Electoral Commission. And this is a known fact. This is a known fact.
Really?
We had to literally beg. We had to literally beg for them to add us to IPAC, that body that is supposed to discuss the elections.
You had to beg to be added to IPAC.
When our candidate had qualified and was on the ballot, we literally had to beg. Jane is there. And I'll give. It happened at Alisa. We were not invited for the meeting. Meanwhile, our candidate, Alan Chamartin, had qualified. I went in there with Nana Ohininto. They told us that we were not invited because we were not part. And we asked them, my candidate is qualified. He has been listed. And you tell me that body that is supposed to be part of the process, all right, that is where you give all the information. All the information is given at IPAC. When there are discrepancies, that is where we deal with it. If there are issues to be raised, that is where we deal with it. If you ought to give us any notice, it is the place you give to us. And so you tell me that my candidate, because an independent candidate cannot be part of it, then we will not accept it.
Was it an oversight? Was
not
it
an oversight.
Or you
so
were
the
told that you
statement
could
is
not
that
be part
we were
of it?
not a political party. And for that matter, we cannot do it. It is, and that is where it comes in. Literally, they are telling us that it's something, IPAC, meaning grant is saying, inter-party, something. So I ask...
because you're not a party.
I asked the commissioner, I asked her, so when you take your ballot paper, or when you have gone to print the ballot papers, are you going to cut off the political parties from the independent presidential candidates? Are you going to set up a different body to help us with the processes? Or it is the same thing we're going to do? We literally had to struggle to be given a seat on that table. And this happens in our constituencies. This happens to some of the parliamentary candidates. Even within the bigger political parties, when the candidate has not a voice, or is not somebody who is able to make his stance known, or somebody who can actually cause a stir, they are always intimidated, and that is where almost all the irregularities happen. I mean, if a candidate like Alan Chamartin would have to struggle to be part of a decision-making body, which he has qualified to be on,
because he's not a political party.
Because it's not. So what happens
because it's supposed
some
to
of
be
these
an
individuals,
inter-party advisory committee.
these individuals who are there? But was there any other body established by the Electoral Commission, whether administrative, ad hoc, whatsoever, that was taking care of the electoral processes? No, it was the same IPAC. You understand me? When the election ended, and I got a notice for an IPAC meeting, I took myself out because I'm not a political party.
You didn't go?
I didn't go. The elections are over. My candidate was an independent presidential candidate. The elections have ended.
But you required to be part of IPAC before the elections?
Yes, because
which was your right to
which
do
was
so?
our right to be there.
But after the elections, you refused to
No,
participate.
what am I going to do there?
Well, what does that say about the future and
the future
invitations?
is,
well, now you are a party.
The future is that now I'm a united party.
Yes.
And so per their own rules that establish the IPAC, I am...
now you're a party, so it changes the dynamics. But I have a small confusion with your refusal to be part of IPAC after the elections. When you properly made your point to be part before
Alan
the elections.
is no longer a presidential candidate. It is over. He has other things to handle.
Yeah, but IPAC still runs even after the elections.
IPAC runs as for political parties. You understand me?
But you can't eat your cake and have it, though.
No, we can eat our cake and have it. At one point, we are supposed, because that was the only body that was handling the informations and the processes. That was where all the discussions were happening. So if that is a place where all discussions were happening, at the end of the day, what happens? You understand me? So the question was the Electoral Commission going to build another party or form another body to feed the independent presidential candidates and their agents with informations and for us to discuss? So the question was that, okay, if you have gone to have discussions with the political parties and the decisions are taken, would you bring that same topic to us, the independent presidential candidates, for us to discuss and also take a decision that will suit us?
Okay.
If no, then we are supposed to come together and deal with the matter. And it was just for that period. And elections are over, results are, the candidate is declared, the winner is declared, sworn in.
So that was done.
That was done.
All right.
You understand? So
let me
the regulations ought to work. The regulations ought to work. We need to work with it. Sometimes we sit and we allow very smaller issues. We rather want to build public image and allow these small issues to affect us. I mean, if they had done their work well with regards to the irregularities that we are talking about, I don't know the in-depth of these irregularities that occurred. If they had done their work well, we wouldn't be here today going to run a whole constituency. The cost involved, the stress.
Yes.
Now, within 30 days. All right.
Yeah.
Matthew, I'm told, has filed a stay of execution.
Yeah, he's filed
you understand? Means he's going to appeal.
Yeah.
He's going to appeal. Now, for somebody to be able to say he's filing an appeal or pushing for a stay of execution, it means that the person should be more than 60% sure that indeed his appeal is going to work. All this struggle and pressure that we go through. I mean, the Electoral Commission ought to. They should do better. I think so.
Yeah. Thank you, Nana.